This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
So good, so good, so good.
Great gifts for mom? We've got them. And they're up to 60% off at Nordstrom Rack stores now.
You know they have Marc Jacobs?
Gotta show mom some love.
That is so good.
Snag amazing deals on Mother's Day gifts from Barefoot Dreams, Kate Spade New York, and more. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Hello and welcome to I Talk to Ghosts, the podcast that will lovingly haunt you throughout time. I'm your spirited host, Jennifer, and I'm happy to be spooky with you today. A quick update. I am still in the process of moving. I'm hoping to settle down soon, but in the meantime, I have compiled for you a best of spooky ghost stories episode. I've hand-selected some of my favorite ghost stories that I've told you over the years, and I'm hoping the ghosts will keep you company while I'm away. I am really looking forward to creating and sharing with you new ghost stories and new spirit readings, and I will join you as soon as I possibly can. But for now, enjoy the hauntings. The ghost stories start right now. My wife and I were living in a house in the country in the state of Alabama. We never considered the house to be haunted. One night, however, something came to call. It really was the proverbial dark and stormy night. We had learned that in the colder months, you could cut down heat loss through the windows by wrapping plastic sheeting around the screens. As we learned that night, putting the plastic on the screens outside made it vulnerable to winds. The wind was blowing very hard in gusts from all directions. It was causing the plastic to flap against the screens. The trees were swaying back and forth outside, causing shadows to move about the room. I was sleeping very fitfully. The sounds and the light variations had me edgy and kept entering my dreams as nightmares. I dreamt of someone standing over the bed and woke to see the light show and hear the noise, and it was hard to separate the dream from reality. I had several nightmares in succession, but eventually drifted off to an uneasy sleep. At one point in the night, I woke to the distinct feeling that something was hovering over my head. I opened my eyes and looked up into what can only be described as a green mist. It was a bit like being inside a tent with the walls glowing from the light outside. There was something descending from the mist, extended towards my head like tentacles. As I looked up into the thing, I said, rather calmly under the circumstances, "What the hell is that?" My wife rolled over, took one look, and screamed. She got out of bed, crashed out of the room, leaving me alone with this green thing. At this point, the image seemed to be fading, and then it was gone. In a few minutes, my wife came back, rather sheepishly, and soon she was rolling over and going back to sleep as though nothing had happened. I, on the other hand, wanted some answers. "Did you see it too?" I asked. "Yes," she mumbled. "What was it?" I asked her. "I don't know," she replied, "but it was green." That was enough to tell me that she really had seen the same thing. The next day, when she was more chatty, I got her to describe the shape, and it was identical to what I saw. She said it was a domed-shaped object and had tentacles that seemed to reach down to my head. Is it possible that in my fitful sleep, I managed to generate something? At the time, and for years afterwards, I thought of the green thing as some evil thing trying to attack me. But I suppose it's possible I created it from my nightmares. This story was submitted by Elizabeth. Elizabeth, thank you for sharing your story. When I was 17, I went out with a bunch of friends to see a movie at the local mall. I didn't have my driver's license yet, but a friend of mine did, and they had access to the family van, so the 6 of us all carpooled together. Included in the group was a boy in my physics class named John. Gosh, I had a crush on him all year, and finally someone in my friend group had invited him to join us that evening. Looking back, both of us agree this was our first date. It may not have been official, but we say it was because how many people can say they saw a ghost on their first date together? Turns out both John and I were super interested in the paranormal from a young age, so this first date agreement fits us perfectly. Back to the ghost story. After the movie was over, we all hit the drive-thru and drove around listening to music, talking, and really not wanting the evening to end. It was a lovely summer night and no one wanted to go home. I certainly didn't. We had just seen the movie Poltergeist 2, and John and I could have talked about all the scares, including that gross worm thing, all night. As we aimlessly cruised the neighborhoods, we found ourselves cutting through the local arboretum. There weren't many gates to close it off at night, but the trails were definitely supposed to be off limits after dusk. Suddenly, my friend parked the van. Apparently, we were going to go on a night hike adventure. Sorry, Mom, I could have been doing a lot worse. The 6 of us wandered up the trail, goofing off and joking that the creepy old man from the Poltergeist movie could be hiding behind any tree or shadow. I gotta admit, I was a little creeped out. A fact I didn't hide because it was a great excuse to hold on tight to John's arm. Plus, I had left my glasses at home. Call it typical teen angst, but I didn't want to wear them while out. I can see well enough, but on a real dark trail, I lose my distance vision really quick. All of a sudden, my friend in the front stops short and we almost bump into him. He freaks and panics and hisses for us to scatter as he jumps off the trail into the bushes. We all followed him, piling onto each other, and he whispered that he saw someone below coming up the trail towards us. We were all afraid it was the police and we were done for. As quietly as possible, we sat there, waiting and straining to hear something. Footsteps, talking, the sudden yell of someone commanding for us to come out with our hands up. Nothing. literal crickets. My friend motions that he's gonna venture out and peek, and he does so. I watch him go out to the trail at a crouch, look down the hill, and then stand and just stare for a moment. A couple of blinks later, he shakes his head, turns to us with a completely frightened expression, and yells at us to run. He doesn't wait for us, though. He's suddenly booking it back to the van. Everyone starts running, and I can't see. Luckily, I have John's hand in a vice grip, and he pulls me up the trail. I glance behind me, and I see a glowing blob on the trail below. Honestly, it looked like a really blurry person in a glowing white dress making snow angel motions in the air. That unfocused, jumbled vision quickly disappeared behind me as I decided I'd better concentrate on the ground ahead of me, or I was going to break my neck. Inside the van, everyone was loudly talking over each other about what they saw. They insisted they saw a ghost. John turned to me excited and asked me what I saw. Dumbfounded and not quite sure what I glimpsed, I slowly raised my arms up and down from my sides. Everyone shouted their amazed agreement. My friend started the van, and we headed home. We talked about it for days later. Except for Becky, she insisted she didn't see anything and refused to even hear someone bring it up. I don't talk to Becky anymore. John researched the area we were in and discovered that in the 1970s, a young woman had been murdered and her body was left in that arboretum. I truly believe we saw her ghost that night, signaling for us to help. I feel bad that we ran, and I hope that she has found peace. My fascination with the paranormal continues to this day. Same with John. We've been married 10 years, and I love it when he reads me ghost stories at night. This event took place 3 years ago. My mother had just purchased a ring from a new age store, and shortly after, she experienced some very weird things. One night, when my mom was sleeping in her bedroom, she woke up and saw a girl standing at the end of the room next to her closet. The girl was wearing a long white dress that went down to her ankles, and she had long black hair that covered her drooping head. When my mom noticed her, the girl floated towards my mother. Her eyes were like black holes. Her mouth was the same. Suddenly, the gaping darkness that was her mouth opened wide, as if she was screaming at my mother. My mom jumped back and turned on the light, and the girl disappeared. These visitations went on for about a month. Lots of strange events surrounded that ring. For example, when my mom would be in her car, she would suddenly realize that the rearview mirror had been turned and pointed directly at her face. She would correct it, only to find it moved once again. She was almost in multiple car accidents as well. My mom decided to throw the ring away. This worked for about a week. However, after that week, the girl came back. My mom was searching through her jewelry box one day and saw something. The ring she had thrown away was sitting there on top of all her other rings. After that, my mother and sister decided they would put the ring in a bag of salt and throw it away, hoping it would rid her of the spirit for good. The spirit has never returned to this day. However, I can't help but wonder what will happen if the ring is freed from that bag. Will the girl return, or will it find a new person to haunt? I was about 11 when I experienced something extremely unnatural. It was about 9 p.m. on the weekly night where my mom did the family's laundry, and she was already working her way through this chore. There was about 6 different sorted loads: lights, darks, delicates. I was in the living room with my mother and my little brother. Nothing seemed out of place. The phone rang and startled me because I was sort of dozing off. The call was my younger sister, in need of a ride, so my mother left with my brother to go pick her up. It wasn't until 20 minutes later that my older sister came out of her room and went into the kitchen for a glass of water. She came into the living room where I was lying on the couch and sat next to me. She then asked where everyone was and added that she had seen someone walking down the hallway and was not sure who in the family she had seen. She then asked if anyone was wearing a gray shirt that day. I told her no, and that nobody but her and I were in the house. When she heard this, her face grew ghastly pale. I've never seen her in such a state. Needless to say, I hurriedly picked up the phone and called my mom on her cell to see when she was coming home. She was stuck in traffic. In somewhat of a panic, I dialed up my grandmother's number and told her what my sister saw. She told me to have my sister check in all the back rooms. My brave-hearted sister did so and found no one. Before we knew it, my mom returned and came in with my younger sister and brother. I told them what had happened, and my mother assured me that if my sister hadn't found anything, then there was nothing there. That night, in my top bunk bed, while drifting off to sleep, I heard a faint knocking on the wood under my bunk. I ignored the faint noise, just thinking that it was nothing, as I drifted off to sleep, only to be awoken again by an even louder knock. My bedroom door was shut, so I figured someone was just knocking to come in. I answered with a tired, "Come in," and the doorknob turned, and the door creaked open. I waited and waited, and then opened my eyes. When I saw that nobody was there, my heart just about stopped beating. I quickly climbed down from my bunk with my pillow and my blanket, ran out of the room and down the hallway to the living room, and fell asleep. Some days had passed, and it was the night my mom did the weekly laundry again. My sister again saw something walking down the hallway, but this time in a dark red shirt. It was 9:30 p.m., around the same time as the last incident. This time, I ran to where the load of dark clothing was, only to find that my dark red shirt was missing. I'm guessing the gray shirt that my sister saw the last time was missing too. The next morning, when I woke up, I found my red t-shirt bunched up alongside me in my bed. This ghostly situation carried on for the next couple of weeks. Shirts disappeared and then reappeared. We started calling it the shirt-snatching spirit. After a few months or so, the activity tapered off and hasn't happened again. I live with my parents and younger sister. Lately, we've been having weird experiences in the house. Everything from creepy voices to shadow people to my closet door being opened on its own. My sister even once saw a small ghostly child run through her bedroom and out the window. I have been having sleep paralysis a lot. I kind of got used to all these things, and it didn't bother me much. However, there is one particular story I'd like to share that my brother and I experienced. As previously mentioned, I used to have sleep paralysis quite often. I've read about sleep paralysis, and it seems like it has nothing to do with the paranormal. True or not, every time I had nightmares during sleep paralysis, I would see a really tall shadow of a man wearing a hat. I have never seen his face, just a tall shadow with big red eyes. One night, my brother was staying the night at my place, in my room while I was working the night shift. I was at work, but I was really tired, so I decided on my break I would take a quick nap in my car. I had a horrible nightmare, and I woke up sweating and breathing heavily. In this nightmare, I saw me and my brother in my car, and we were bruised and bleeding from a car accident. My brother was trying to help me come to consciousness, and in my back seat was the same tall shadow looking at us and laughing. The whole thing left me very shaken. As I sat there trying to calm down, my phone binged with a text notification. It was my brother, who should have been sleeping at this hour. I responded to his greeting with, "Don't tell me you just had a nightmare." He was stunned and told me, "Don't say a word. I'm coming to your office." When we discussed what he dreamt, he described the same nightmare and the same shadow person laughing. Both of us had the same vision, and we both woke up at the same time as well. This story was submitted by dear friend of the podcast, Caitlin. If you would like to submit a story of your own, you can email me at speaknow@italktoghosts.com. Thank you, Caitlin, for your story. One Halloween night, a local paranormal society hosted a ghost hunt in a historical home. My dad thought it would be interesting for us to go, as I've always been sensitive. The night was clear, cold, and calm. The house was a mansion that was built by a wealthy family before the Revolutionary War. There had been a skirmish between the British Army and the local militia on the front yard. Although the house is owned by a historical society, it still sits unoccupied and somewhat derelict in the back of a large field. Dad and I would often watch the show Ghost Hunters, so we kind of understood the equipment and knew what to expect. In the parlor of the home, the Paranormal Society allowed us to pick what type of equipment we wanted to use. A lady working with the society, who said she was a medium, handed me a pair of brass dowsing rods. I had never seen them before, and I was surprised by the strange humming sensation they made in my hands, like an electric current. The medium explained how to use the rods to ask yes and no questions. The rods moved independently, supposedly guided by an unseen spirit. Above the fireplace at the far end of the room stood a painting of a lovely woman in a pink dress. She looked friendly, which is not something that often comes across in old portraits. The team explained how this was a portrait of Abigail, one of the previous owners. She was one of the most active spirits in the home. Through the dowsing rods, I almost immediately made contact with Abigail. I sensed that she was kind and fun. I felt as though I had made a friend. The paranormal team was surprised at the responses that I received and the fact that Abigail did her best to manipulate the equipment when I asked her to. At the end of the evening, my dad jokingly said, "Well, Abigail, you must be getting bored around here. Why don't you come and visit us sometime?" While I enjoyed the experience, I didn't know what to make of my interactions with the rods. I hadn't seen anything, and it all could have been the power of suggestion, or so I thought. I tucked myself into bed that night and fell asleep. A desk and a chair sat at the foot of my bed. Weeks before, someone had given me a mylar balloon which I had tied to the desk chair. It now lied on the floor almost completely deflated. I had meant to throw it out. Around 3 a.m, a strange rustling sound woke me up. I sat up in bed and stared in complete shock. The balloon was moving. In the dim light, I saw the string being pulled by an unseen hand, left, right, up, down. The string rapidly jerked the sad-looking balloon as far as it could go. I rubbed my eyes and pinched myself to make sure I wasn't dreaming. I remembered what Dad had said to Abigail about coming for a visit. I got up and untied the balloon from the chair, saying, "That's enough, Abigail." I tossed the balloon into the hall bathroom, shut the door, and went back to bed. Abigail is still a frequent visitor in my parents' home, and I consider her still a good friend. I've seen her several times, as have my parents and several guests. The most notable sighting happened the following year. My great-grandfather had come to stay for us for a while after his house had burned down. He wasn't very kind to me, and I hated being left home alone with him. One day, after a particularly bad incident, I left him in front of the television in the family room while I went to make dinner. Suddenly, I heard him shouting, "Caitlin! Caitlin! Come here! There's a woman in here!" I poked my head into the room to see what the matter was. Sure enough, Abigail had materialized next to the television. She stood translucent and motionless. She was glaring at him with an intense dislike. Frightened, my grandfather exclaimed, "That woman! She's glaring at me." I replied, "She sure is," and I laughed as I went back into the kitchen. My great-grandfather went to stay with other relatives not long after. And with that, dear listener, we've reached the end of this best of episode of I Talk to Ghosts. I hope you've enjoyed the ghost stories that I shared with you. Did you have a favorite? I would love to know. So please reach out. In the meantime, wherever you wander off to in this world or the next, just remember, come back and visit with me. Have a lovely evening and good night.
Fear Daily is a podcast that takes you into the shadows of the past, unearthing the 1990s most terrifying tales of monsters, madness, and life after death. Discovered on a forgotten bulletin board server somewhere in Pennsylvania's Rust Belt, these stories are an archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experience them. Written by Brennan Storr, creator of the Ghost Story Guys, and hosted by Brandon Scheck-Snyder of Southern Gothic, Fear Daily is your window into the dark corners of our world. Follow Fear Daily today on your favorite podcatcher to receive new episodes Monday through Friday, each and every week.
How does a quick deep dive into a folklore topic sound to you? From an exploration of places or traditions, to a thorough investigation of themes such as British fairy creatures or ocean monsters, to eclectic topics such as cheese and modern-day creepypasta. Luke Lore is a twice-a-month show hosted by myself, Luke Greensmith, and filled with wonder, very British sardonic wit, and no small amount of creeping dread as stories from around the world are brought to life. You can find Luke Lore anywhere you enjoy podcasts, while the scripts of the show are available for reference at www.lukelore.com.